The crowd of aliens gathered around the execution platform. Thousands of eyes from different species watched the scene below. The sky above the planet Vornek was purple and heavy with clouds. The arena was built from black stone. It had seen many deaths over the centuries. Commander Zyrax stood at the front of the crowd. His forearms were crossed over his chest. His green scales reflected the dim light of the twin suns. He had waited for this moment for 3 long years. The human prisoner had finally been caught. The creature that had destroyed his fleet. The monster that had killed his brother in battle. Today, justice would be served. The executioner was a massive Throken. His species was known across the galaxy for their brutal strength. He stood 8 feet tall. His muscles were like mountains under gray skin. In his hands, he held the ceremonial axe. It was made from the bones of ancient beasts and weighed more than most beings could lift. The blade was sharp enough to cut through starship armor. The prisoner was brought forward in chains. He was small compared to the executioner, just a human male. His name was Marcus Cole. He had been a soldier once, then a pilot, then a legend. The aliens called him the Ghost of Andromeda. He had single-handedly destroyed 17 warships during the Great Conflict. He had saved 3 human colonies from extinction. Now he stood in chains on an alien world, far from home. Marcus looked around the arena. His eyes were calm. He had known this day would come eventually. The war had ended 2 years ago, but his enemies had long memories. They had hunted him across star systems. They had finally caught him on a trading station near the border. He had been betrayed by someone he trusted. That was how it always happened. The crowd was silent as the charges were read. A tall alien with tentacles for arms spoke in a booming voice. Murder, war crimes, destruction of property. The list went on for several minutes. Marcus did not respond. He simply stood there, his wrists bound by energy cuffs that glowed with blue light. Commander Zyrax stepped forward. He wanted to see the fear in the human's eyes. He wanted to watch this creature beg for mercy. But the human just looked at him with those strange round eyes. There was something in them that Zyrax did not understand. Something that made him uncomfortable. The executioner raised his heavy axe. The crowd held their breath. This was the moment they had all been waiting for. The human was pushed to his knees on the stone platform. He did not resist. He did not cry out. He simply closed his eyes tight and lowered his head. Zyrax smiled. Finally, the human was showing fear. He was accepting his death like the weak creature he was. Humans were soft. They had no natural weapons. No claws, no fangs, no armor. They were fragile things of flesh and bone. It was a wonder they had survived in the galaxy at all. The axe began its descent. And then something happened that no one expected. Marcus opened his eyes. In the crowd, hidden among the alien spectators, a small device activated. It had been placed there hours earlier by a human woman named Sarah. She was part of a rescue team that had been tracking Marcus for weeks. The device sent out a pulse of energy that disabled every electronic system in the arena. The energy cuffs around Marcus's wrists flickered and died. The human moved faster than anyone thought possible. In the split second before the axe could reach his neck, he rolled to the side. The blade struck the stone where he had been kneeling. Sparks flew into the air. The crowd gasped in shock. Marcus was already on his feet. His hands were free now. He grabbed the chain that had been attached to his cuffs and swung it at the executioner. The heavy links wrapped around the Throken's wrist. Marcus pulled hard, using the creature's own weight against it. The executioner stumbled forward. He was confused. No prisoner had ever resisted before. No one had ever escaped the ceremonial axe. But this human was different. This human was fighting back. Commander Zyrax shouted orders. Guards rushed toward the platform, but they were too slow. Marcus had already taken the axe from the executioner's hands. The weapon was heavy, but he had trained for years to be strong. Humans might be small, but they were adaptable. They could become anything they needed to be. The first guard reached the platform. Marcus swung the axe in a wide arc. The guard fell back with a cry. The second guard tried to grab him from behind. Marcus dropped low and swept the creature's legs out from under it. The third guard was bigger, with thick armor covering its body. Marcus threw the axe at it. The weapon spun through the air and struck the guard in the chest. The crowd was in chaos now. Aliens were running in all directions. Some were trying to flee. Others were trying to fight. The arena had become a battlefield. Sarah appeared on the platform beside Marcus. She was wearing a combat suit and carrying a plasma rifle. Behind her were 3 more humans. They were all soldiers. They were all survivors. Marcus took a weapon from one of the fallen guards. It was a primitive thing, more like a club than a gun. But it would do. He had fought with worse. Commander Zyrax pushed through the crowd. His eyes were burning with rage. The human was supposed to die. This was supposed to be his moment of triumph. Instead, everything was falling apart. He drew his own weapon. It was a blade made from crystallized energy. It could cut through anything. He had used it to kill many enemies in his time. He would use it to kill this human now. Marcus saw him coming. The 2 warriors faced each other across the platform. The crowd had cleared around them. Even in the chaos, everyone could sense that this was the real battle. This was what it had always been about. Zyrax attacked first. His forearms gave him an advantage. He could strike from multiple angles at once. His blade moved faster than the eye could follow. Most opponents would have died in the first second. But Marcus was not most opponents. He had spent his entire life fighting. He had been born on a colony world that was attacked when he was just a child. He had grown up in the ruins of civilization. He learned to survive when survival seemed impossible. Every scar on his body told a story. Every wound had taught him a lesson. He dodged the first strike, blocked the second with his stolen club, ducked under the third and fourth. Then he countered with a strike of his own. Zyrax felt the blow against his armor. It cracked under the impact. No one had ever cracked his armor before. He stumbled back in surprise. The human pressed his advantage. He moved with a speed and precision that seemed impossible. He struck again and again. Each blow was calculated. Each movement was efficient. There was no wasted energy. No hesitation. No fear. Zyrax tried to defend himself. But the human was everywhere at once. He could not track him. Could not predict his movements. Could not understand how something so small could be so dangerous. The alien commander fell to one knee. His armor was shattered. His blade had been knocked from his hands. He looked up at the human standing over him. For the first time in his life, he understood true terror. Marcus looked down at his enemy. He could kill him now. It would be easy. It would be justified. This alien had hunted him, had captured him, had tried to execute him for crimes that were committed during a war. But Marcus lowered his weapon. The crowd fell silent again. They did not understand what was happening. The human had won. Why was he not finishing his enemy? Marcus spoke. His voice was calm, clear, strong. He said that he was not an executioner. He was a soldier. He killed when he had to, not when he wanted to. The war was over. The killing could stop now. Commander Zyrax stared at him in disbelief. He had never been shown mercy before. It was not the way of his people. When you defeated an enemy, you destroyed them. That was the law. That was tradition. But humans had their own laws, their own traditions, and perhaps that was why they were so dangerous. Not because of their strength or their speed, but because of their capacity for something that other species had forgotten. Something called compassion. Sarah called out to Marcus. The escape ship was ready. They needed to leave before reinforcements arrived. Marcus nodded and turned away from his fallen enemy. The rescue team made their way through the chaos. They fought when they had to, but they did not kill unless it was necessary. They moved like ghosts through the crowd of aliens. Soon they reached the edge of the arena where a small ship was waiting. Marcus was the last one to board. He looked back at the arena one final time. Commander Zerax was still kneeling on the platform. His soldiers were gathering around him. They would recover. They would rebuild. And maybe, someday, they would understand. The ship lifted off and disappeared into the purple sky. In the months that followed, stories spread across the galaxy. Stories about the human who refused to become what his enemies expected. Stories about mercy shown in the midst of battle. Stories about a species that could be both fierce and gentle, deadly and kind. Commander Zyrax never forgot that day. He never understood it completely, but he stopped hunting humans after that. He told his people that it was because the war was over. But deep down, he knew the real reason. He had looked into the eyes of a human and seen something that terrified him. Not violence, not hate, but the strength to choose something different. The courage to break the cycle of revenge and death. That was the true power of humanity. Not their weapons or their ships or their armies, but their ability to change, to grow, to become better than they were. Marcus Cole returned to Earth. He lived a quiet life after that. He never spoke about the execution that did not happen. He never bragged about his escape. He simply lived each day with gratitude and peace. But the galaxy remembered. The aliens who had once dismissed humans as weak began to see them differently. They were small, yes, fragile, perhaps. But there was something inside them that could not be measured or understood. A fire that burned even in the darkest places. A hope that survived even when everything else was lost. A love that was stronger than hate. The muscular executioner had raised his heavy axe. The prisoner had closed his eyes tight. But in the end, it was the prisoner who showed the greater strength. And the galaxy was never quite the same again.